little extra at the end. If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
I'd be practicing law. I actually love the practice of law. I've argued before the United States Supreme Court, and it was the most fun I ever had for 22 minutes, really. So I do enjoy the law.
What kind of law do you do?
Well, now I do municipal and zoning because I can do it at night when I'm not in Harrisburg or otherwise busy. Like tonight, I'll be going to a zoning hearing board and representing the board, counseling them, giving them the information about the law, and then writing up the decision that they reach. So I love the practice of law. I think it's a lot of fun, and that's what I would do. Sometimes when I get discouraged in Harrisburg that things are not going my way or I can't seem to get stuff done that I think should be done, I think I'll just chuck it all and go back to practicing law full time.
Do you ever just, if you weren't doing this and you weren't doing law, would you be running a stable somewhere, or?
I sure would be riding more often. I guess that's true. I might even write a book. I think we could use a good book on civics.
It's funny. Everybody that rides horses, nobody says they ride too much.
Right,
you
exactly.
never hear that. Everybody needs to ride more. And I know so many people that have horses that they don't get to see enough, and they kind of just drive over out of shame every now and then to check on them and spend some time and do some cleaning, but they don't get to see them. It's like, and that's a lot of money, but it relaxes them when they can get on them. I've never, I like horses, but I've never found that level of relaxation in it.
Well, for me, it's a double because usually I don't like to ride in a ring. I don't really show. I like to trail ride. So I'm out there in the open space. And of course, that's two loves at once, the horse and the open space.
Where do you go at Green Lane? You ever go up Green Lane?
Occasionally I go to Green Lane. That's lovely. We ride around. Gwinnett has a lot of preserved land, so we can usually find our way around.
And do you have any stories that stand out? That exemplify the impact of your job? That
sometimes the smallest things are what help. We've had situations where somebody forgot to get a passport. Now that's a federal deal, and I'm a state rep, but we knew who to call and how to make it happen. And when you can do something like that, when people are truly desperate and you can help them out. We also have people who call our office because they live in, Ohio or California even, and their elderly mother took a fall, and they just don't know what they're going to do. And, we can put them in touch with people who can help them and their elderly mother figure out a way forward. And it's a godsend because often the child who lives out of state is unaware of how age is really catching up to their parents. They see them on Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever, and the parent looks pretty good for 4 or 5 hours. And then they go back to their lives in California or Florida or Arizona or wherever, and their parent is a little old lady living all by herself in a big house where she raised the kids, and they don't realize it. So when there's a crisis, it comes as a big shock, and we can help people. We can put them in touch with the Aging and Adult Services in the county. We know those folks. I served on a committee there for a while. We can help them. And so one of the great things about being a state rep is, and we work hard to cultivate this in my office, is we know somebody. Oh, I know somebody at Labor and Industry. I'll give them a call and call you back. Oh, I know somebody at Transportation. I'll give them a call and call you back. And we work hard to do that because it lets us cut through red tape.
And that's the most important thing. It's not that anybody is smarter than anybody else or anything. It's connections. You don't learn that to two-lane life, or at least I didn't. It's not what you know, it's who you know and what they know. And, we joke about that and call that, the whole I got a guy thing.
Exactly. But it goes back to what I said. Everything in the world happens because two people talk to each other.
Right. Not because they text, not because they tweet, because they actually talk to each other.
And that's really true in the legislature. Because sometimes you have an idea that you think is spectacular, but you don't have 102 votes. So you go to talk to somebody who is very much opposed, and you listen to why they're opposed, and you talk to them. And then you say, well, if I tweaked it so it only applied to counties with people over 500,000, would you have a problem with this? No, my county only has 25,000 people in it. Okay, good to know. Oh, that's what I'm saying. The way sausage is made, the way laws are written, sometimes depends on two people talking to each other and understanding. I could vote for that if it only applied to counties like yours and not to mine. Or I could vote for that if my county could get some money and we don't have any accredited police departments. Or I could vote for that if this worked that way. And so a lot of my job as a legislator is negotiating. But I have to be willing to listen. And sometimes the public doesn't get that. You're either pro-gun or anti-gun. You're either pro this or pro that. You can't have a nuanced view where you say, well, okay, can we do this without hurting that? Can we help this without doing that? Can we solve the problem without doing that bill? And it takes people talking but listening to each other to figure that out.
And that's very true, because most people, there's that thing that most people don't listen to hear, they listen to respond, you know, and they're not focusing. And I just think that these different ways that we communicate are okay for things like, I'm running late, pick up milk. But as far as conversations where you have to sway somebody one way or another, I don't think they work that well.
Right. Like, suppose you're writing a law to deal with driving under the influence. Everybody agrees that drunk driving is bad. But when you write a law, you got to figure out whether some kinds of drunk driving are worse than others. And you look at facts for that and you talk it through. And guess what? If you're 0.15 and above blood alcohol and you've driven before and gotten caught before, you are multiples of time more dangerous as a driver than the first time offender who's really at 0.10. Okay? They're both crimes, but we should punish them differently because we got to get that guy who's obviously got a problem off the road. And sometimes technology comes along and can help you. When they were new, ignition interlock was very expensive. It was about $1,500 a car. So it was difficult to get people to use it and difficult to make it work. But guess what? Now there's a company out there who will rent you the ignition interlock for about $7 a month.
$7?
Can you believe it?
Wow.
Yes. So ignition interlock actually works pretty well to stop the drunk from driving when he's drunk. And so we need to tune up our laws. And we did, to make it more likely that you could get ignition interlock. But we need to deal with technology as when it's good for us and figure out how to make it work. But it comes from talking to each other. I thought ignition interlock, we'll never get that passed. It's $1,500 a vehicle. No, we had a hearing where we had a company come in and say, yes, we rent them $7 a month.
See, I think that when you get people sitting down in a room in small groups, they can make big leaps in progress when they're not distracted by other things and they're not feeling that they're mugging for the camera or they're trying to protect their little faction or whatever. Or
their next election.
And I think that they really can get things done. And I think that the internet is it's a good avenue for some forms of communication and to get things out there. And surely it's a good way to see baby pictures and pictures of cats and puppies. But as far as actual discussion and progressive things, I think it's like a shotgun approach. And I took a course. I always wanted to take some training in what I thought was mediation. And I went and took it with Good Shepherd in Philadelphia and loved it. But halfway through it, after the time wasn't right for so much of my life, I was tied up with other stuff. I finally had the time. Halfway through the course, I realized I don't want to take mediation. I want to take negotiation. And they're two different things. They're two different animals.
They are. And I actually warned people about that. I like mediation. I also took a course in mediation. And I took one in negotiation. The problem with mediation is the goal there is an agreement. In negotiation, you can negotiate a good agreement.
Right.
And that's a big difference.
Right. And I just found that mediation, I'm more attuned to negotiation and mediation. But I think that people talking and realizing that their politicians are accessible, especially with the way times are now, no matter what side of whatever you're on, knowing that there are politicians that are accessible and will listen and want to listen and live in the same world as you is important.
Right. And I try to be that person.
You
so
are.
Thanks.
You are.
Thanks. I try to do that.
You are. Is there anything you want to cover that we didn't cover?
No, I just want to urge people to, use your state rep as a resource, but also to try to discuss issues and understand them. The slogans are good, the hats are good as far as they go, but they don't actually solve the problem. What solves a problem are two people talking to each other, just as you said.
Yeah, and the other thing I get in trouble for telling people, when people say they'll thank us for stuff, and they'll say thank you for your service, or thank you for what you're doing, and that's always, and I know it shouldn't, but it's always irritated me to a degree. And what I've said, because it's embarrassing for me, for one thing, it always seems to be if we're done after something and I've got a mouthful of something, and they always want to shake your hand, and I've got food on my face. But I usually, what I say to them now is, don't thank me, help me.
Well, and I think that's a good response for you. And I know that a lot of guys in your position, are embarrassed by this. But the truth is, as citizens, we should thank the people who get up in the middle of the night and answer a buzzer, or get up in the middle of the night and answer a cell phone, and run into burning buildings and run into woods and looking for people, and carefully tread slowly and carefully to look for people. We should thank you.
Oh, we
thank you. We should.
We certainly appreciate it, but I would like to see more people. And I'm not saying do what I do or do what you do. Just pick something that they want to do. There's a little old man in Ambler that just walks on one block, and he picks up trash.
Right.
And my buddy told me about him, and in passing we were talking, and I gave my buddy one of those things so you don't have to bend over.
Yeah.
And I said, give this to that guy. And because it was bothering me, because I know if I were bending over all day to pick up trash, it would hurt my back, and he's much older. And it's just that little thing. Just, I'm not going to pick up the trash.
Oh, you recognize
I recognize what he's doing, and I appreciate it. And maybe this will help him.
I think people should volunteer, because I think they get more back than they put in when they really think about it.
I think it's part of, I think it's like shop and home economics. It's part of your development. But if I were in charge of the world, many things would be different. I think school should be 14 years instead of 12. Everybody should have the option to go to an associate's degree, so they get out with half of the college bill paid, potentially. But I think they should have to put in X amount of time of community service, and there's a listing of categories in their area where they do volunteer hours, because I think it helps you grow. And it's some people that may be the only chance they have where they have a real job, where they really do something. And there's something different about when you do something to volunteer, because that liberty of not being tied to it monetarily means you're just there because you want to be there.
Because you want to be there. Exactly right.
And that's great. But yeah, I mean, you've always been very helpful to us whenever we've needed anything. I've always appreciated it. I've always felt like you were a friend to everything we do, and without a lot of people, you amongst them, we couldn't do what we do. We couldn't.
So both of us agree on one thing. Everybody should volunteer in their community. Do what you can,
Yeah, cut the TV watching in half, maybe cut down to a 50-inch TV, go outside, meet some people, change your community, make the world a little better, and read a paper.
Have a great time doing it.
Read a paper, ride a horse, save a trail.
Thanks.
Okay, peace out. We're done, Russell. We're done.